All right, y'all. So our boy Bernie Sanders went on Joe Rogan's show, and I'm going to show you a couple of moments here. One of them is an actual heated debate over Trump and free speech and his fascism. So we'll dive into that. But let me give you first just a quick breakdown of how it went. So honestly, they spent a lot of the time talking about AI. And, that part, in my opinion, was probably the most boring part. But Bernie also did his classic Bernie thing of hammering away on income and wealth inequality, which I love. Getting Joe Rogan to nod along in agreement to that. We also he brought up money in politics and corruption. That was a theme he kept coming back to. That's classic Bernie. That's great stuff. But there were other moments. Look, I'm a little annoyed that he didn't go deeper on the issue of Iran, right? Like, here's Israel and the U.S. launching an illegal and offensive war against a country that didn't attack us. And I don't know, I feel like that requires a lot more hammering away. As Crystal told me, right now, the regime has so many soft spots, and you need to exploit those. You need to hammer away on those. So they did bring it up, or Bernie did bring it up, but it was, they were just like on and off it very quickly. And I thought that required, a much longer deep dive where Bernie explains in perfect detail how the U.S. are the baddies, Israel are the baddies, we launched the war, it's illegal and offensive, et cetera, compared to Iraq, the whole spiel. They didn't really get into that. Also, Bernie, unfortunately, didn't get into the kidnappings and abductions and human traffickings and sending innocent people to a concentration camp in El Salvador and Guantanamo Bay, and all of just the rank fascism, the absolute destruction of the Constitution and due process and habeas corpus. So, it was not our boy's best interview. It just wasn't. There was also a part that made me want to bang my head against the wall where Bernie brings up climate change, and then Joe starts doing climate change denial talking points. And unfortunately, Bernie really didn't take him head on. Now, look, I can understand if you don't have your facts ready, like specific facts ready to refute what Joe is saying, then it's a little bit of a weird position where you feel like, what am I going to do? Let me just move on to another topic. But to allow Joe to do climate science denial talking points, which were complete and utter horseshit, and sort of let him get away with it, that was definitely not good. That was not good, to say the least. There was also another point where, on marginal taxes, where, first of all, the theory holds true to this day. There's not a single conservative in the world that understands what marginal taxes are. And Rogan proved that yet again. And Bernie had to explain that to him. And Rogan didn't seem too hot on the idea of raising the top marginal tax rate, which, of course, is like one of the most basic common sense things that you have to do in our country in order to make it survive and give working people a chance. All right, but now let's get into some more specific parts. So this part triggered the shit out of me. So Bernie starts calling out Elon Musk for donating $270 million to Donald Trump, basically helping buy Trump the White House. Elon Musk also bought himself the ability to illegally hack into the Treasury and do whatever the fuck he wants. This is like corruption on steroids and human growth hormone. We've honestly never seen anything this corrupt other than maybe Trump's scam meme coin, which is another thing that Bernie unfortunately didn't bring up, which he should have brought up. I mean, maybe he did bring it up, but if he did, it was like in passing, so it didn't really stick in my mind. But so he brings up Elon Musk and how corrupt Trump is. And this response from Rogan, it really goes to show you, like, yes, in some parts of the podcast, Rogan will just sort of like go along to get along with Bernie. But then in other moments, he can't like hold back the fact that he genuinely has become way more right-wing within the past 2 or 3 years. So listen to Joe's reaction when Bernie brings up Elon's corruption. And then again, not Bernie's best moment, but I feel like conceding a point he shouldn't. Here we go.
What it says is, you're a billionaire. You have now the constitutional right, because your money is your freedom of expression, right? So you don't like Bernie Sanders? You can put millions or hundreds of millions of dollars into a campaign and express your view about how terrible Bernie Sanders is, right, and you can buy that election, right? That's right. Your constitutional right. I think that's probably the worst decision that the Supreme Court has ever made. So what is the result of that decision? The result of that decision, let's take us to where we are today, is that Elon Musk, and I know Elon was on your show, and he's here in Austin, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. And we could talk about Elon, but he spent $270 million to elect Trump as president. Okay. I think that's absurd that any one person...
What's the most someone donated towards the Harris campaign?
By the way, notice Joe's instinct there. Protect Elon at all costs. Protect Elon at all costs. It's brought up to his face how immensely corrupt Elon Musk and Trump are. What about Kamala? What about Kamala? Tell me about Kamala. Now wait for it, because Joe Rogan is about to say something phenomenally incorrect, but all of his little sycophant bitches tweeted out this clip as if it like validates Joe Rogan and he had a point, which I'm about to rip to fucking shreds for you here.
I think that's absurd that any one person...
What's the most someone donated towards the Harris campaign?
They spent a lot of money on Harris as well.
They spent $1.5 billion just
Combined.
over the course of a couple of months.
You got it. All right, let me talk about it. So
Yeah,
I'm not here
let's
just to
talk
say
about
it's
that.
a Republican. That's my point here.
Right.
Okay, did you hear that? I'm going to play it for you one more time. Listen closely to what Rogan says.
He spent $270 million to elect Trump as president. Okay. I think that's absurd that any one person...
What's the most someone donated towards the Harris campaign?
What's the most someone donated towards the Harris campaign?
They spent a lot of money on Harris as
They
well.
spent $1.5 billion just
Combined.
over the course of a couple of months.
You got it. All right, let me talk about it. So
Yeah,
I'm not here
let's
just to
talk
say
about
it's a
that.
Republican. That's my point here.
Right.
What Joe Rogan just said there is a lie. Maybe it's not a lie. Maybe he's just flat out misinformed. But he just said someone spent 1.5. No, Joe, that was the entire campaign. That's how much money the entire campaign raised. Now, I'm against money in politics. Bernie's against money in politics. But let's be clear. These things are not the same. In fact, I went and I looked it up, right? I said, how much money did Kamala's 2024 campaign raise in total? The answer was $1.4 billion. Then I asked, who was the biggest single donor to Kamala and how much did they give? The largest single donor to Kamala's 2024 campaign was Future Forward USA Action. That's a Democratic-aligned nonprofit. So it's a PAC, which contributed $138.5 million. That's a whole PAC, okay? This reflects the largest single organizational donor. The biggest individual donor is Dustin Moskovitz, who gave $50 million. So no, objectively, mathematically, empirically, there is no comparison. Elon spent one person $270 million he spent to buy Trump the White House. The most a single donor gave to Kamala was $50 million. Now, I'm against all private money in politics, billionaire money in politics, corporate money in politics. I would do clean elections, which is public financing for elections like that right now. So I'm not defending the Kamala thing, but this is the sort of false equivalence bullshit that I hate. And also, it's not even false equivalence, because what Joe is saying is Kamala's more corrupt. The Democrats are worse because someone gave her $1.5 billion. That's not true. That's a fucking lie. Nobody did. And by the way, let's be clear. We have never seen a more corrupt scheme than what Elon Musk and Trump did. Elon Musk gave Trump $270 million. Trump in return said to him, here's the fucking keys to the treasury. Loot it if you'd like. In fact, let's get into specifics about Elon's Doge cuts. He cut pediatric cancer research, Meals on Wheels. He destroyed the CFPB, which is the anti-scam police. He fired nuclear safety officials, including our top nuclear safety official, and then had to beg for that guy to come back. They destroyed FEMA, the Department of Education. They fired 83,000 veterans. They cut 50% of the Social Security offices. They fired 250,000 public workers overall. They got rid of food safety inspectors. There's no more routine food safety inspection. They fired air traffic controllers, even though we have a massive shortage. And by the way, 7 plane crashes under the Trump regime. They cut scientific research and medical research. And of course, because of the U.S. aid cuts, which by the way, Rogan fucking loves, it is a fact that hundreds of thousands or millions of people will die. Why? Because you deprive people of their HIV medication, of their malaria medication, of their AIDS medication. People have already died because of those cuts. There is not a single fucking thing you can point to about Kamala or the Democrats that is comparable to this immense degree of corruption where the world's richest man, robber baron billionaire, bought Trump the White House, and then literally got to hack into the government, steal all of our data for his AI, and cut whatever program he wants, including the ones that regulate his ass to keep his ass in check. So that triggers the fuck out of me and all these right-wing idiots sharing this clip as if it's Rogan owning Bernie when Rogan is literally factually incorrect. And look, as I said, Bernie also let me down here by being, oh yeah, no, totally, it's equal, it's even. Like, no, it's not. Can we stop fucking pretending here for 5 seconds? It is not equal. It is not equal. And Rogan is literally like, the Billionaire Defender Experience should be the name of his podcast, because he has on Mark Andreessen to lie about the CFPB, Mark Zuckerberg, Peter Thiel, the fucking vampire who looks like he drinks baby blood, and Elon Musk on a regular basis he comes on to lie to Rogan's audience and lie to Rogan's face, and Rogan sits there every fucking time and gives him a hot stone massage and still pretends like Elon is a genius, even though he's one of the biggest fucking scam artists and frauds in this country. So holy shit, did that piss me off, man. That triggered the shit out of me, dog. Okay, so now let's move on. Let's get to the debate, and then I have one more for you after the debate, which I also feel like is super important. But this is the part where they actually get into it. Most of the podcast was, just a conversation, and they basically sort of agree generally going back and forth. But this is the part where it gets the most heated. This is definitely my favorite part, but I feel like this says so much about Joe Rogan, this part that you're about to watch right here. Let's watch.
And what I worry about Trump is, you're right. I read, it is astounding back in the 1780s when these guys wrote the Constitution, how perceptive they were.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, they said,
their understanding of human desires and the power and all the corruption.
Exactly.
Pretty amazing.
And they wrote that having just fought a war and won a war against the most powerful despot on earth, the King of England, right?
Right.
And I think in the back of their minds was saying, all right, we just beat the King of England, absolute power. How do you create a new country which has checks and balances so that nobody ever has that power
right.
again? And I got to say, I mean, one of the things, and there's a lot of arguments about Trump, that worries me very, very much is this movement toward authoritarianism and going after media, suing media, taking away the authority that Congress has.
When you say suing media, are you talking about the CBS lawsuit?
Among other things.
Right, but don't you think there's a real issue with what they did?
No.
You don't think that there's a real issue in editing conversations to give someone an answer that's different than what they really answered?
Joe, I've been on 8 zillion shows, right? In my life.
Okay.
Now, should I sue you if you ask me some stupid question that I don't like, right? Or that you do something? Should I sue you?
Yeah, but that's not what he's getting.
Well, he has sued ABC.
Mm-hmm.
He has sued Meta. He is suing the Des Moines Register because of a poll that came out during the campaign that he didn't like. All right. He is suing CBS for this Kamala Harris interview. So do I think I cannot tell you the number of stories done about me that were not good stories.
Right.
That were dishonest stories. That's what a free press is about. You don't like it, you got to live with it. All right. You do something, I'm not going to sue you, Joe.
Right, but it's not that simple, right? Like, let's not talk about Trump, but let's talk about another candidate. Let's just imagine there's someone on the right and someone on the left, and there's a concerted effort to promote this person that's on the right. And so the polls are rigged, or these are funded polls that make it look like this person on the right is winning by a substantial margin. And what this does is decreases the motivation that people have to come out and vote against them.
That's happening.
So it's fake.
By the way, that happens right now.
It is happening right now. And I think, is that part of what he's suing them about?
No, but
But isn't that what he's suing them about?
Joe Rogan is so deep in the right-wing bubble and so far up Trump's ass that, first of all, he takes Trump at face value. That these are legitimate lawsuits because they were lying and they were defamatory and they edited the Kamala interview to make her look better. On the topic of editing interviews to make people look better, let me show you this, Joe, because I'm sure you haven't seen it because you're in a right-wing misinformation bubble 24-7. So Trump was interviewed, this is before the election, on Fox News, and he was asked about Jeffrey Epstein. Here's the edited version that Fox showed when they rebroadcast it. Ready? Watch this.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah. I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
That was the edited one. What was the original broadcast? Watch this.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah. I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would.
So his actual answer was, yeah, I'd declassify it. But, that one less so because you don't want to get any innocent people caught in some trouble because there's a lot of phony stuff in that whole world. When Fox reran that, they cut out the part where he goes, yeah, less so because there's a lot of phony stuff in there. Gee, I wonder why Fox News is protecting Trump when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein, a thing that Rogan has cared about in the past and talked about a lot. Well, Joe, guess what? Your boy is in the Epstein files. The guy you endorsed and went to his inauguration and gave him a hot stone massage on your podcast, he's in the Epstein files. Jeffrey Epstein is on tape saying, I was his best friend for a decade. And you got nothing to say about that. But here's my question for Joe. So should Kamala and the Democrats have been able to sue Fox News because Fox News clearly edited an interview to try to make Trump look better? Yes or no? I'll wait. If you have the same standard that you have for Trump, you should be like, well, absolutely they should sue over that. Or, Joe, it's free speech. Or it's free speech, and an outlet has the right to edit something however the fuck they want to edit something, even if it's fucking misleading. You can't sue Fox over doing this. Duh, fucking Fox News is in the tank for the Republicans. They're in the tank for Trump. Are there some liberal outlets that are in the tank for the Democrats? Of course. You're going to fucking allow a lawsuit over that? Are you psycho? But that's the thing. He's only okay with it in one direction, the direction he likes. And he just takes at face value that, oh yeah, Donald Trump is like, he's like serious about this stuff. Like he just feels like he was defamed and he thinks the only way to make this fair is do this. And by the way, the Ann Selzer lawsuit. So Selzer released a poll in Iowa that showed Kamala up 4, right? And Trump is now suing over that poll because Trump ended up winning Iowa by a lot. So he says, oh, this was, an attempt to do election interference. Here's the problem with that. If you're a Democrat and you're in Iowa and you see a poll where your candidate is up 4, you are less likely to go vote because you're going to think, oh, Kamala's going to win anyway. She doesn't even really need my vote. So she's up 4. So even if she wins by 2 or 1, she's going to win. So why would I even vote? So in other words, it's the exact opposite of the effect that Trump and Rogan are pretending that poll has. And the reality is that poll just got it wrong, right? That's it. It goes no deeper than that. If we're going to start going at for incorrect information, if we're going to start I got bad news for you, Joe. Your show would be off the air in a fucking instant, dog. But so would Fox News, so would Newsmax, so would One American News Network. All of those outlets would be off the air. Fox News had to pay $787 million in a lawsuit to a voting machine company because they flagrantly lied about that voting machine company. Flagrantly lied about it. Fed into the stolen election bullshit narrative. And that's the outlets that are the worst offenders. But no, they flip it and pretend like it's the liberal outlets or the both sides outlets that they're the worst.
He's suing ABC for one thing.
But with the Des Moines Register about the poll.
Yeah, I know the poll's there.
Was the poll incorrect?
Yeah, the poll was wrong. So what? Guess what?
But what did they know it was incorrect when they published it?
No, they published what they...
He's got he's got Democrat derangement syndrome and liberal derangement syndrome. Right? He really does. There's no way around it.
Thought was an accurate poll. But that pollster, by the way, what's the name? Seltzer polls.
I should just state for the record, I don't know this lawsuit. But
what it was about...
No shit, Joe. I don't know it, but let me also defend Trump on it very loudly and aggressively.
I am aware that in talking to people that understand polls, that some of these are politically...
All right, but the answer is yes and no. There are polls right now doing exactly what you say.
Right.
I could doctor a poll. I could talk to more conservative, more progressive people, get the results that I kind of want, right?
And they do it to motivate people or demotivate people to vote, and it's effective.
But it would cut in the other direction of what you're saying. The Iowa poll showed Kamala up 4. That makes Democrats less likely to go vote, not more likely.
On the other hand, this particular pollster, it's the Des Moines Register, not a huge newspaper. I bumped into them because when you're running Democratic primaries, Iowa is a big deal. They are a very, very respected pollster. Okay, they don't doctor polls. So they made a mistake on a poll. It turns out they had Trump doing worse than he ended up doing. Guess what? Pollsters, honest pollsters, make mistakes too.
But what is the basis of his lawsuit? Like, what is he saying in the lawsuit?
I think he is saying...
Notice what Joe does. It's always like, let me try my best to steel man the Republicans, steel man Trump, view what they're doing in the best light. And it's the exact opposite for liberals, leftists, and Democrats, where the default perspective is they're all crazy and have pink hair and they're too woke and they lie all the time. Donald Trump told over 30,000 lies in his first term. I don't know if Rogan has ever addressed that. Trump has told some of the most preposterous lies I've literally ever seen, bro. I've told this story before, but he used to, in like the 1980s or early 1990s, he would call the tabloid magazines and say, it was himself, but he would pretend to be his own publicist. He'd say, my name is John Barron, and let me tell you, this Trump guy, he's hot. All the women want him. Madonna wants to date him. All these women want to date him. It's truly incredible. They can't keep their hands off him. It's amazing. And one of those tabloid magazines released the audio tape of Trump pretending to be his own publicist, sucking himself off. And then when they played that for Trump in the 2016 campaign, he goes, That's not me. I don't know what you're talking about. That the most insane lies you've ever heard. And Rogan, fucking water off a duck's ass. He still endorses him, goes to his inauguration. Pathetic.
That gave energy to his opponents, and that it was... He's
Like we
saying,
talked about.
Like you talked
Yeah.
about, but I don't believe that's the case. There are honest pollsters who make mistakes.
But what about the other the other lawsuit with the conversation that they had with Kamala Harris, where they edited the answers that she had to make it look more precise?
60 Minutes, they were suing 60 Minutes,
Yes.
is, to my mind, historically, they've been around for a very long time. You know, they're not infallible, but I think you look at most objective people will say 60 Minutes has a sterling reputation for investigative journalism. Are they wrong?
But that's not investigative journalism if you change someone's answers. If you ask her a question...
You mean like Fox News did with Trump and Epstein? You mean like that? Why don't you go on your show now and call for Kamala to sue Fox News over that? Call on the Democrats to sue Fox News over that. I won't hold my breath on that, Joseph.
She comes with a rambling answer that doesn't make sense, and you edit that out and insert another answer to a different question that seems more cogent.
All right, Joe.
The sense you're getting here is that Rogan, he's not seeing the big picture and what the purpose of the lawsuits are. And I'm going to get to that in a second because it is crystal clear what the purpose of the lawsuits are. And it's suppression of free speech and suppression of dissent against the regime because he's a fucking fascist.
Then you're walking down, you're walking down a dangerous path. Suing media has the impact of intimidating media. All right, if somebody sues you, all right?
That's such an important point, too. Yeah, because then the media is going to be like, hey, last time we criticized Trump, he sued us, and we had to pay out fucking $5 million in legal fees. I guess we shouldn't criticize him. Or I guess we should reduce our amount of criticism of him. That's the point, Joe. That's the point.
Somebody sues you. You know, why not you? You could be sued tomorrow, right? Because you are doing this. You're too sympathetic to this.
Right.
And Joe, you did that. And they have a big law firm behind you. You're going to have to spend zillions of dollars defending yourself. You know what? Next time you do an interview, you say, maybe I'm not going to go in that area. Right?
No, but it's not that. It's editing things.
It's unbelievable. It's literally unbelievable. It's like hitting a brick wall. His brain is a fucking brick wall. Joe, you're the guy who spent fucking years yelping about free speech, complaining about pink-haired people on college campuses with a septum ring trying to deplatform Ben Shapiro. Okay? You were screaming, First Amendment free speech, who cares if it hurts your feelings, bro? Fuck your feelings, bro. And now you're like, oh, Trump's feelings. An interview was mildly edited in a way he didn't like. Sue them, Don. This is so pathetic. It's so pathetic.
It's deceptive editing.
Joe,
so in deceptive editing, you give people a different perception of who this candidate is than reality.
Right.
In just a second, you'll know exactly why. Rogan's line of argument here is complete and utter horseshit, because when you look at the list of lawsuits and anti-free speech actions taken by the Trump regime, the picture is crystal clear.
But that's not objective journalism.
I know, but
that's campaighning for that person.
Right, but
even if that were the case, that's not illegal. Oh my God. I'm gonna lose it, bro.
I don't have those details. I don't know that I agree with your analysis of it. I don't know enough.
I think that's universally accepted that that's what they did.
Then you got to tell me why he is suing ABC. Why are you suing Meta?
Let's just talk about the 60 Minutes one first.
But it's not just
we can go to ABC.
Don't bring up other examples which clearly prove your broader point that this is not actually about him wanting ethics in journalism. Let's not talk about that one because that makes me look bad. Let's harp away on this one, of which, by the way, as I pointed out, there's an equal and opposite example which Rogan will never fucking acknowledge that Fox News edited the Epstein clip to make Trump look better.
I'm not aware of that one.
Well, George Stephanopoulos said something that he didn't like. But the point is,
what did Stephanopoulos say?
I can't remember. It was I honestly don't remember. But
I think what he was saying was factually incorrect about the results of one of Trump's trials.
All right. Guess what? If I were to sue everybody who said things that were factually incorrect about me, I'd be suing people zillions of times.
But
Joe,
you're literally talking to the U.S. politician who's been smeared more than any others. Most of the criticisms of Trump are fucking accurate. So those aren't smears. Bernie has actually been smeared. Remember when, I think it was in 2016, weren't there like 8 or 11 articles run in a 24-hour period by the Washington Post, every single one ripping Bernie to shreds and fucking lying about him?
Does media get it wrong sometimes? Absolutely. Should you have the most powerful person in America suing media? What is the impact of that? The impact is clearly intimidation.
By the way, also, Joe, Trump is going after universities and he's going after law firms with the same fucking playbook, signing executive orders, illegally targeting them. And what's the effect of that? Trying to scare them into never representing any Democrats or people who oppose him. It's intimidation. It has a chilling effect. trying to illegally take over these universities and control their curriculums and do like MAGA affirmative action. There is no defense for this. It is just rank fascism.
He wants to defund public broadcasting, NPR. Why is that? Well, because they also would run critical stories of him. This is part, in my view, without getting into any one case, it's part of a pattern that says, hey, I got the power. Don't you criticize me. You criticize me, I'm going to sue you. So it's not whether this show was right or wrong. There are shows every day they get it wrong. It's whether you respect you and other media people to do the best that you can. And if I don't like what you're doing, I'll go someplace else. But I don't like presidents suing media, and then it's, threatening to impeach judges who rule against you. Really?
Look at Bernie's face here. He's so right. Yeah, they're arresting Democratic politicians. They're arresting judges. They're planning on arresting more judges. Why are you still pretending, Joe? Now, okay, let's get to the core of the issue here. So Rogan seems to think like, wait, no. Trump has an argument when he sues these media companies. He has a solid argument about being defamed or slandered or what have you, or basically this being an in-kind contribution to the Democratic Party. Joe, here's his record. Not only did he sue Ann Selzer for the poll he didn't like, and he sued CBS for how it edited the Kamala interview, he sued Simon & Schuster, the book company, because they released a Bob Woodward book that quoted him and he didn't like the quote. He threatened to de-license news outlets that criticize him. He's talked openly about wanting to punish flag burning with a year in jail, which, by the way, that is literally directly against the First Amendment. We already had a case in 1989 that went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said that is political speech. It is fully protected. He sued CNN for $475 million because CNN called his election denialism the big lie. He sued because they called it the big lie, even though that's a fair and accurate categorization of that bullshit as evidenced by Trump losing fucking 60 cases on it, okay? I mean, when Rudy Giuliani got in front of a court, he was like, oh no, we're not alleging election fraud. Then what the fuck are you doing here? Why are you at the court? These people are liars and scoundrels and cretins. Trump sued Bill Maher before he was president for $5 million because he didn't like a joke Bill Maher made. Trump has said repeatedly he supports, quote, opening up the libel laws to sue journalists. He called for jailing journalists who reported on the Supreme Court abortion ruling. Remember that? We got that decision early. It was leaked to the media. They reported on it. Trump wanted to call for jailing the journalists who reported on that. He's arresting pro-Palestine protesters across the country, as we've seen. He literally gag ordered his own EPA from telling the truth about climate change. These are all anti-free speech, authoritarian, fascist moves. He arrested and charged 6 journalists with, quote, felony rioting. That was just a lie. If he cared about free speech, he would have pardoned Assange, he would have pardoned Snowden, he would have pardoned Daniel Hale. He didn't fucking pardon any of them, right? Like, he wanted to invoke the Insurrection Act to deploy U.S. troops against George Floyd protesters. This is the guy who literally said, I want to, quote, terminate all rules, regulations, and articles in the Constitution. Okay? The idea, he's just a stickler for the facts, and he's going after these people because they made serious slanderous mistakes. That's such fucking cope. He's an authoritarian. He's a fascist. He hates free speech. He hates that people are allowed to criticize him. There's a video of him talking to, I believe it was Steve Doocy of Fox News, saying basically that he's jealous of Kim Jong-un because when Kim Jong-un walks into a room, all of his people stand at attention and they listen. He's like, I want my people to do that. That's where this comes from. Shut the fuck up. Don't criticize me. Only heap praise on me. If you do step out of line, I'm going to try to sue you and ruin your fucking life and send a chilling effect so that nobody else fucking criticizes me. Now, by the way, if any Democrat in the country had the same record on this that Donald Trump did, Rogan would call that person public enemy number 1. Rogan would say the person's super authoritarian, they're super fascist, they hate free speech, they hate the First Amendment, they're trying to destroy this country. Like, that's what he would say. But since it's Trump, it's fucking brain shut off. Because here's the thing. I know I'm not breaking news here, but Rogan is like text buddies with J.D. Vance and Elon Musk, potentially even Donald Trump. He's alluded to talking to him on the phone, like, post-election, right? He's in the friend group now, bro. He's in the friend group now. Everything is through rose-colored glasses. And when he does ever disagree with them, it is fucking tepid as shit. And then he goes right back to shitting on the Democrats, the liberals, and the leftists. That's the game he's playing. That's the role he's playing. No, I'm not done yet here because, so there were a few moments, as I just showed you guys, where Rogan couldn't hide that he's been more radicalized in a right-wing direction, and those moments came out very clearly in the podcast. I just showed you some of them here. But then there's also moments where he was classic Rogan. And what do I mean by that? Classic Rogan could sit across from me and have a conversation with me and nod along in agreement to everything I say. But then like a month later, he could have on Ben Shapiro and nod along and agree with everything Ben Shapiro says. Okay, that makes no sense. That means you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. That's what that is. You don't actually have the core beliefs. You're just about the vibes, bro, and the conversation, bro. So you don't even care if you contradict yourself brazenly, right? Here's a great example of that. So while sitting across from Bernie Sanders, listen to what he says about UBI.
And what happens, even with universal basic income, what we're talking about, I support it. I'm a big supporter of social safety nets. Look, when I was a kid, my family was on welfare. And we were on food stamps too. Like, if you don't have that, people go hungry.
Big supporter of UBI. Big supporter of social safety nets. You just voted for the Republicans and Trump. They're literally trying to kick over 10 million people off Medicaid right the fuck now. And Rogan hasn't talked about that. Rogan hasn't disagreed with that. Rogan hasn't crusaded against that. Okay? That's point number one. I support social safety nets, except I voted for the guy who's destroying our social safety nets. And Elon Musk also destroyed our social safety nets. But I love Elon Musk and he's a genius. But you heard him say very clearly, I support UBI. I support it. Okay. Here's what he said, and shout out to the Majority Report people. Here's what he said short 3 years ago. Ready?
Today, the left has gone so fucking far left, so radical, that the right are the ones that are celebrating comedians and celebrating Chappelle.
Yeah,
and they had my back through all the crazy shit that happened with me. It was Fox News that fucking had my back.
Would you ever think that they would be the ones to cape for you, like, 10 years ago?
I still live it. I talk about it all the time. Like I say, I am not a conservative. I'm not conservative. But I am pro Second Amendment, and I am a hunter, and I am a cage fighting commentator, and I drink and I smoke cigars, and I like to bow hunt.
Yeah.
So there's a lot in there that's like, hey,
crossover.
Yeah, but it's just being a human. But I'm a compassionate person, and I believe that.
Remember that line there. I'm a compassionate person, and then directly where he goes from there.
Where does the compassion get directed?
There's I'll tell you what though. One thing that happened during this pandemic was it opened my eyes about human nature. Like, I used to be very pro universal basic income.
I used to be very pro universal basic income.
Thought was, wouldn't it be great if you just had enough money so you could eat and you could pay your rent, and then you could pursue what you wanted to. But the reality of human nature came fully into focus when I realized that when some people got all that money from the government, the COVID money, and then they got unemployment, they didn't want to work. I have a friend who has a restaurant. He could not get people to come back to work.
Yeah.
And so one buddy of mine, a bartender told him, I can come back to work, but I can only work for 20 hours a week because that way I get unemployment. So he wouldn't work more than 20 hours a week so he could get free money. So he could have made more money, but he didn't want to because he didn't want to work. So he was getting that free money. And then.
So understand something. Rogan had on Andrew Yang when Andrew Yang was the UBI candidate running for president as a Democrat. And when Andrew Yang came on, Rogan loves universal basic income. He supports universal basic income. Then after that, a few years later, it's, no, I'm against this, bro. It doesn't actually work, and people are fucking lazy, and they don't get their shit together, and they don't go to work. And now that he's sitting across from Bernie Sanders, would you look at that? He's for UBI again. I'm sorry, this is hack shit. You can be a conversationalist, and you could do interviews and discussions, but also have some core shit that you actually believe. But no, if he's sitting across from Bernie Sanders, in some ways, he'll go with the flow and go with the vibe and pretend to be more left-wing. But as soon as he's sitting across from a conservative, it's the fucking opposite. So as I said, you got a little bit of both in this interview. You got the parts where Joe sort of goes along to get along and, I love UBI. Well, you were just shitting on it not that long ago. You were for it, then you were against it, now you're for it again? My guess is, next time there's a fucking conservative on, you're going to be against it again. Right? As you gave a detailed explanation here as to why you're against it, but suddenly you're sitting across from Bernie Sanders, now you're for it. So in some ways, he does the go along to get along, right? And then every now and then you got little flashes in the talk with Bernie of, no, I actually have become way more right-wing, right? So that's who the guy is, bro. It's all vibes. It's all vibes. It's all who am I sitting across from? But the moments where his true self comes out, it's always he has some passionate right-wing perspective, like defending Trump on his fucking lawsuits to suppress free speech and suppress a free press. So just a terrible impact on the body politic. And by the way, I'm going to do a segment on this tomorrow, but he was sucking off J.D. Vance in an episode that was either right around this Bernie Sanders one. Talking about how great and amazing J.D. Vance is. Joe, I don't think you understand. It is not a thing to be like, I agree with this guy Bernie Sanders on a lot, and I agree with J.D. Vance. That's not a thing. They disagree on fucking everything. Okay? J.D. Vance is a right-wing hack. And Bernie Sanders is a social democrat. You can't, it's not possible. It is contradictory to say, this guy's right on most things, this guy's right on most things. So, thank God the the era of the Joe Rogan dominance in the podcast sphere is collapsing. And thank God the Midas Touch guys have dethroned Rogan, because this is fucking, I mean, this is just insufferable at this point. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.